In order to save us the pain of watching renders complete over and over again, I've brought our render from the last lesson into the Nuke script we created in the module on Advanced Back to Beauty Compositing. So here is the render, and I've plugged them all into a switch. So if I press 0, we can see the render from the Advanced Back to Beauty Compositing. That's in our input 0. Okay, and if I go here and I toggle between 1 and 2, you can see up here we've got the render and the comp, and they look the same. They all match up. So we've got some nice things going on. Now, going to our 1, because we've kept our naming of our layers consistent, all these shuffle nodes work. This diffuse layer is still called diffuse in our new render, even though it's a different render. It has different settings and so forth. So we have the same matching render. Everything seems okay, but then when we look at this bottle, we can see there's an edge issue, and we may wonder where this is coming from. Now, the thing about this is to use our node passes to actually have a look around and look through the comp and see where they are. So I'm going to toggle different points of the comp, 3. So you can see here in our diffuse layer, as it should be, this is black, because these are the refractive and reflective areas, and they have no diffuse, and that's fine, but it also looks slightly bigger than the comp. So you can see our issue here, that our reflection and our refraction is sort of smaller than the hole that it needs to fit into. So it could be an anti-aliasing, it could be something else. We're going to work through the puzzle. So with the reflections, it doesn't look too bad. When we plug in the refractions, we see this horrible edge, and it only doesn't change with any of these, but once we get to the bottom, it's still there, so it never goes away. So we've got something going on in the refractions, and this is how we can work. We can work our way through the comp, and we can decide, can we fix this in comp? Probably not a good idea, because this kind of edge issue will be a bit tricky and destructive to fix, especially in an animation, and a complex animation will be even worse. So now I'm going to stop the recording. We'll jump into Maya. I'll show you how I fixed it. Before I do, let me show you that I did fix it. So there's the render. So you can see the comp, and let's just get my toggle, the comp and the render. So you can see that I have fixed this issue. So let's jump into Maya and see how I did it. Okay, so back in Maya, if it were an anti-aliasing issue, we could look in this tab, the V-Ray tab, and here are the anti-aliasing filters. I've chosen Cook variable size 2.5. That's quite a nice setting. However, that wasn't actually the issue that we were seeing. The problem was something else. The problem is that in our GI, I had caustic switched on, and as I said, there is another way when you don't want to use caustics to allow light to travel through objects, essentially using opacity. So I've made the attribute editor a little bit bigger so it fits within the screen recording area, but in the reflection settings there is this refraction advanced tab, and here we have this refraction exit color on. So this allows light to travel through the light, and that's great if caustics are switched off. If caustics are switched on, you need to switch this off in all your materials. So one of them should be on and one of them should be off. They should never both be switched on. And so that solved the problem, and in Nuke you saw that I fixed it. Now also within materials we will see another issue. So within Nuke I have this refraction issue, which I will show you now. So we're looking at the switch 2 and the render and the comp. So refraction issue is our number 3. So we have this refraction issue. So the render looks fine. The comp has these really bright reflections. Now, where is this coming from? We saw in our troubleshooting lesson that this issue was happening in the diffuse. So let's have a look at our diffuse layer, and you can see here's a problem right here. Now the diffuse on a refractive material should actually be completely black, so that all the values come from reflections and refractions, specular and so forth. So what's happening here is that the diffuse layer, the diffuse material behind the glass, is actually being refracted as well, and that's adding calculations. So you're effectively adding refractions twice. Now this is controlled in the materials tab in Maya, and it's actually controlled in the refraction advanced again, and it's this effect channels, all channels. So that should be color only, color and alpha. All channels is actually very important when creating mattes, as it allows the mattes to be refracted, and we'll be looking at that in detail in the next module. And the fact that that causes problems in the render itself is the reason why in the demo lesson I actually exported the mattes and the RGBA render separately. So I'm going to turn that back to color only, and I'm going to close that.